Under a blood-orange sky, fire rolled across the valley like a living thing. Smoke twisted upward, staining the horizon in shades of ash and rage. Radios cracked with the last fragments of desperate voices. Broken, trembling, human. 270 troops were surrounded in the Arkan Range, pinned beneath the roar of enemy fire, their supplies gone, their morale fading by the minute. Command had already written them off as lost. But up above, slicing through clouds darkened by the breath of war, an A-10 Thunderbolt banked hard toward the storm. The pilot inside, Captain Elena Kade, was told to abort. Every instinct, every line of authority screamed that she should turn back. The anti-aircraft batteries had already claimed 2 birds that morning. The valley was a kill zone. And yet, as her eyes locked on the faint flicker of muzzle flashes below, her hand refused to move from the throttle. The order came again through the headset, a voice sharpened by fear and rank. Retreat, regroup, return to base. But Elena's silence said more than any protest could. She had flown through storms that had shattered lesser pilots. She had seen men she loved carried home under flags. And now, as the lives of 270 souls flickered below her, the word abort meant surrender, not survival. In that moment, the cockpit became a shrine to defiance. The air reeked of fuel and iron, the seat vibrated beneath her spine, and the pulse in her throat synced with the thrum of the engines. Her breathing slowed, her pupils narrowed. Down there, the soldiers were running out of time. Up here, she was running out of altitude. Elena Kade had always been the quiet one in every room. The pilot who didn't boast, who didn't bark, who never needed to remind anyone she belonged. But she had earned her wings the hard way. Through silence, through loss, through years of being doubted because she didn't fit the image of what a savior should look like. She carried that quiet with her like armor. Now, that silence was about to become her weapon. Years earlier, she had joined the Air Force at 22, chasing the shadow of her father, who died in the same kind of valley during a mission no one talked about. The medal they gave her family still hung in her mother's living room, polished but meaningless. Elena had learned early that medals don't stop bullets, and glory doesn't heal grief. What mattered was choice. That impossible razor-edge moment when you either follow orders or follow conscience. She had made that choice before, once in Afghanistan, when a child had wandered onto a firing line and she'd broken formation to protect him. It had nearly cost her career. They'd written her up, stripped her from flight duty for 6 months. She never defended herself, never begged. Her silence had spoken enough. It said she'd rather be grounded for life than lose her humanity at altitude. Now in the present, the same war-torn conscience roared back to life. She could almost hear her commander's voice again, cold and sterile. A pilot's job is to obey, not to feel. But Elena felt everything. Every scream through the radio, every explosion below, every second of hesitation that meant another heartbeat stopped. The trapped soldiers were from the 52nd Infantry, a young platoon led by Lieutenant Harris, a man Elena had flown cover for before. She remembered his nervous smile, his quiet gratitude over a cup of instant coffee before deployment. "If we ever get pinned," he'd said, "I hope you're up there." She hadn't known how prophetic that would be. Her A-10 descended through the haze, bullets stitching the air around her wings. Each flash of enemy fire was like a pulse of lightning through a dying storm. She could see them now, tiny figures pressed against stone, their world collapsing inch by inch. And beneath that chaos, something ancient stirred in her chest, a pulse of purpose, the kind that ignored orders and heard only the language of duty. Later, reports would sanitize the story. They would call it unauthorized engagement and reckless heroism. But the soldiers who were there, the ones who had felt her defiance cut through death itself, they told a different version. They said she didn't just save them. She reminded them what leadership meant. In the days that followed, a video began to circulate. It showed Elena being airlifted from the valley, her body battered, her eyes half closed. But even then, she managed to raise a single hand, not in salute, but in reassurance, as if to say, "It's done. You're safe." Her words from earlier that day became something of a legend among pilots. Not today, simple, unshakable. The kind of line that soldiers wrote on helmets and whispered before impossible missions. When she recovered, she was called before a tribunal. They wanted her to justify breaking orders, risking an aircraft defying the chain of command. She stood before them, straight, silent, unflinching. When they asked her why she did it, she finally spoke. Because I could. That was it. No apology, no defense. Just truth, spoken without ornament or fear. The room fell silent. No one argued, no one could. Weeks later, the official reprimand vanished quietly from her record. Command never admitted it publicly, but some truths don't need to be written to be remembered. Years later, when young cadets asked about her, instructors didn't talk about her medals or missions. They talked about the day 270 troops were surrounded, and one woman refused to let silence mean surrender. And somewhere in that same valley, long after the war had moved on, a small plaque appeared near the dry riverbed. It didn't carry her rank or her title, just her name, and those two words that had come to define her courage. Not today. Her story spread far beyond the barracks and bases. Veterans who had never met her began leaving patches, notes, dog tags, small tributes to the kind of bravery that doesn't roar, but endears. Because in a world that too often celebrates loud victories, Elena Kade's story reminded everyone that true strength is sometimes quiet, and that the most powerful defiance is not in disobedience, but in conscience. And somewhere in the endless hum of engines that cut through cloud and fire, her spirit still flies, calm, resolute, unyielding. For some heroes, the sky never ends. If you believe her story deserves to be heard, share it. Tell others about the woman who refused to abort the mission, who chose humanity over protocol. And wherever you're watching from, remember, sometimes courage speaks in silence. And sometimes the words that save the world are as simple as, "Not today."